Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a double top 8 breakdown for you guys today. We have both the European as well as the Oceania top 8 from the launch events for the Battle Spirit Saga card game this past weekend. So really cool resources here. If you guys want any of these deck lists, make sure to use my website, Eggman Events. Both this page and the European page, both of them are linked in the description, which have all the deck lists for it, have all the breakdowns and everything else. So trying to make a really good resource for Battle Spirit Saga and all other kind of Bandai card games as well, and I hope you guys enjoy it there. So also I do want to say specifically for the Oceania ones, thank you to Cosmic for helping me track these down, as well as he has his own breakdown there, which I'll link in the description as well. And there's also tournament VODs for this event too, for the Oceania one, which is really cool. None of the other events I think recorded any matches, so I'm happy to see that this one has some gameplay for you guys who want to see it, which is nice. So going into this breakdown though, we look at the full archetype, and honestly, the way that the graphs look between the two is nice. This one is more generalized than kind of actualized. It's really hard to kind of quantify archetypes in this game right now, just especially since it's so new and everything is kind of mostly the same because the card pools are so small. But so please forgive any kind of oversimplification for some of these decks or some of these archetypes, but they kind of give the idea for what you have. So obviously, Siegwurm Nova is the most popular, purple control, white control, and like yellow Fable piece from there. So honestly, and that's kind of shown in the top 8 breakdown as well, of where you can see that chart. Besides just the fact that yellow's not in this top 8, and it's not in the top 8 for Europe as well. We just kind of miss it there, and I don't think it's any surprise that yellow is probably the weakest color in this card game right now. It just doesn't have the same tools and kind of lasting power that the other colors I feel have. Like, it doesn't have like a big boss monster as well, as good as pretty much all these other decks, and that's kind of what's holding it back in my mind right now. But going into this as well, so for the Oceania event, we did have 3 Novas, 2 purple soul controls, 2 white controls, and this really interesting white purple control, which we represent with Mr. Elephant over there. And honestly, all these lists are really cool. I do like this white purple one. We'll go over it in a minute, but I think that's kind of what we're generalizing seeing. Just all 3 of these decks I think are very viable. I think they do counter each other in some regard, and you do see that as well. And then for the European one as well, pretty much the same. So 3 Novas, 3 white controls, and then 2 purple decks. They're moderately similar, but they're different enough that I kind of do want to talk about it. In general, there's kind of like a little bit of a decision point if you want to put Maduke as your top end or not, and I think that's kind of different enough to kind of talk about it as well. But we do have our decks that we're going to talk about. We're just going to talk about the top placing deck in each archetype, and then we're going to kind of compare and contrast between the 2 events as well. But again, if you guys want any of these deck lists, they're going to be linked in the description on the Eggman Events pages as well. But going into it, we're going to look at the first place list here from Oceania. So this is, and apologies for any names I get wrong, but this is Shing Chang's Purple Soul Control list here. And this is pretty much what I'm enjoying in this meta. Purple has a lot of great abilities that you can, like, it's just very good at control. Control is very good for this color. You have a lot of just generally above average cards on power level. So I think the culprits you'd really like to see is Beldegor is fantastic, especially kind of going into late game grinds. This kind of just turns into a draw 1 a lot of time because you can attack with something, and it can be something that's kind of weak, like a Cavalier with only 3k, and then if they try to block it, you get to play and KO it. You get to play the Beldegor for the cost there, which is really nice. The back to this Cursed Dragon combo, we already know that's very good. There is one Grand Maduke in here too, but we're not going to talk about that. Also, I should have said this a minute ago. We're only looking at the main decks. If you guys want the side decks, they're there as well, though. Camelot Knight makes sense, and just kind of honestly, the more I play Earth Spider Demon, the more I like it. The fact that it doesn't have a when summoned effect is really kind of impactful too, just because Cavalier is as good as this is. It just means that your opponent gets to draw 4 with Star Blast a lot, which is really stinky. But I do like the idea that this is a 4, which is great for your Dark World 7 and everything else that kind of goes with it. Netherworld Depths always overperforms for me when it sticks, which is kind of asking a lot because a lot of decks are running Burning Force, even if they're not red, which is kind of stinky. Deadly Balance is probably one of the best cards in purple, though, in general. It's just really good for what it does, being able to use it to... If you have no spirits on your board, which is pretty easy, 3 to just go 1 for 1 is actually really strong. And then Core Theft as well, which this can also kind of lock out games a lot of the time. And then that kind of like the idea for that. This is the first place list. We'll also look at the 8th place list for EU, kind of also the same idea. Some compare and contrast between the two of them, I would say, for this one. A little bit more of kind of like the shadow base, which is interesting, but not that really adds anything more. But the Dark Knight Palomines, when the spirit attacks, select one of your opponent's exhausted spirits, you may attack that spirit. So honestly, this being able to attack into stuff, I think can be kind of impactful, especially against some of these aggressive decks too, just being able to target that, which is nice. You do have to put 2 cores on it, but that's not too bad. We do have another when summoned on the Magic Swordsman. You do have to spend the soul core as part of a summoning cost, but that's not too bad, especially since you're only running 2 of the Camelot Knights and the Aglavales there. And then also just the idea, we do see like the one of Andromeda, which is interesting, and also the Mumura. Like this is... I really do like this card, especially like turn 1, it can just go 1 for 1 very easily on the when summoning. But I think the Spider's just almost always better because it's cheaper. You do have to attack with it, but it's very like this gets the removal as well. And if you attack with it, it means that if you have Baltigor and it dies, you can get the recursion there. But obviously pretty similar for both these builds, and I do like purple a lot right now. Just sometimes I feel like white has a really good matchup against it, which brings us into our first place for European. This is Aatu Gröhn's white control list here, and this just it's pretty... I don't know, like this deck just looks not fun to play against it as general. Like this one specifically looks like it's just super duper control heavy. We see you have 4 of the Elk, 4 of the Suppression, 4 of these Ice Shields, 4 of the Dream Bombs, and we have Heaven Piercing Castle, which I haven't been seeing this one as much, but when your opponent draws outside the draw step, you can pay a soul core to draw a card. So instead of Rocket City, which you are also playing, you're able to use this to get some card draw as well, which sometimes is a rough thing for white control. So also when the spirit blocks effect attacks, you may place up to 2 cores from your trash on top of it too, which I think that's a really neat little effect for it as well. That just means like this one doesn't have a one this blocks. This one doesn't either. This one, yeah. So being able to like attack with Odin, and then you get the refresh with it, which is nice. Which I guess like you have to spend 2 cores on it, right? So you put 2 cores on that to do this on, whatever. I don't know. It's just a good nexus to like have just your cost reductions and everything else, and then you go up into your elephant. You have your enterprise to stop you stuff. You're doing 4 of the head ice made fullas in the main, which means you do not like purple very much. And again, like this looks really obnoxious. If I was playing purple, I'd be really upset against playing against this, which I pretty much was running against mostly against white in the launch event too. But man, elephant is such a good card. Like so many decks can just splash an elephant and then they just get so much advantage for it. If this is just like the idea of like pay 8 to draw 3 and ramp 3, most people would do that, which is silly. So it's crazy, and then also can be like an end game win condition since it does get the refresh at the end of turn, which means you get the you can be a little aggressive if you put four cores on it. So this is Aatu's, and then we also have the second place from Oceania. This is Kwun Shing Chang's list here. A little bit more aggressive and tech worthy on this one, and I say aggressive but just because of the idea that you are running a little bit of more low to the ground stuff, including like the Mecha Wing Duck. You're running the Buffalong Bill as well. I really, really like Buffalong Bill. I think he deserves to be in most white control decks like main, just because like it can be both offensive and defensive in the sense that it can help you push for game, which sometimes I feel like white has a bit of an issue for it. But yeah, because during your attack step, all your spirits when the spirit block effects also activate when attacking, and then also you get to do the refresh there. But this deck looks pretty standard as well for kind of what these control lists want to do. 3 of these city, which are not often, most people just run 1 or 2, but being able to a machine beast that costs 6 or more, which I think is strictly this guy. Yeah, I think it's only this one. This is a mecha, this is a machine beast, and this is there's also elk, so it counts as 3 white symbols. So you can just play this for 4, which is nice. I like this. I think this is an okay card. I know there's Nexus Destruction, but it just kind of forces your opponent to do that as well. Also, Forest of Steel Leaves, if you have a burst card set, your white nexuses cannot be destroyed by effects of your opponent's red spirits are magic, which is actually kind of important too. So saying that they ran so many of this, it's only the white nexuses too, so you don't get the protection of Netherworld Depths. That would have been actually busted. But also for when one of your spirits is destroyed by your opponent, select one of your nexuses, or select one of their nexuses and return to hand. So honestly, this looks like a little fun little tech card, specifically against all the fact that there's so much there, and you're almost always going to have a burst card for white, whether it be Absolute Ice Shield, Counter Sword, Dream Bomb, or Star Blast Draw, which means that they either go into it or you just keep Ice Shield there and you get the benefits for it. So I do like this card in the sense that being able to protect your nexuses is really, really great. It's really, really strong. And most of the burst effects kind of happen half of them kind of happen when you lose life, right? So like this one, Ice Shield and Counter Sword, so like the split there. But the Ice Shield and the Dream Bomb being able both to lose life means that you're not able to really interact with this at your opponent's turn, because usually, unless they go to another attack, which half the time they won't with Ice Shield, it just means like you're always going to have permanent like protection on this, which is nice. So I don't know. I think that's worth kind of looking into more myself. And congrats again to Kwun, Shing, Chang for their finish there. All right, next up we do have top 4. So we do have the Siegwurm decks. This is Marco Kwok's list from Oceania as well. And we do see like a little bit of tech here with also the Derm Dine. I didn't talk about it in the other builds, but this is like a really good win condition for a lot of these decks too. So pay the Spirit's Soul Core, select one of your white spirits for each nexus your players control. The selected spirit cannot be blocked this turn, so you can use it for itself too. And then also, during either attack step when this spirit would be destroyed by your opponent's effect, you may pay a core to keep it on the field refreshed. So just the fact that you can attack with this, it can't be blocked, means that and like it has the protection, means it's like a really good just end game kind of win condition card, which is nice. And then also, what else do we have? We do have like the generic combo. We do see Bearded Eagle, which is a really good. I think in general people have figured out that even if this is a skillless card, the stats on this card is insane. You get to play it for free. For 2 cores, it's a 5k, which gets out of a lot of good destruction effect. At least it gets it out of Burning Force, and then for 4, it gets it out of Volcanic Break as well, and just very good for kind of getting that additional boost. And so split between Volcanic Cannon and Scorched Battlefield. I didn't like this card as much, but seeing it more and more, like just the 1k boost inherently is good enough for a lot of this stuff. It means that like for 2 cores, your Rain Needle is a 4k, which means it gets out of the Burning Force, as well as the same thing with this as a level 1. You get to attack, get the plus 2k, and that's a 4k with the Scorched Battlefield as well. So being able to get over that 3k threshold, I think, is really important in some of these. And like again, like with Bearded Eagle, even if you just play this for free with 1 core, it's a 4k, which again makes it out of the Burning Force as well. So other than that, this obviously isn't, I'd say, like a hard. I think this is like more of a mid-range kind of aggressive build of Nova. I think this is a good kind of end condition, but it's not like the end-all be-all have to do so kind of effect from this. I think you can get a lot of damage from poking with your little boys and just kind of going from there. So that is the Oceania top 4. And then with the other one, this is Joshua Bausch for EU, their top 4. And this is more of the Pterosaur build. And honestly, like, for the record, only North America had like their super aggro Pterosaur decks, and they did really well, but no other breakdown or any event for these launch events kind of had that tech, which is really interesting. But this is Giganorex, which really great. So you just kind of run the Emperor Beast and Pterosaur package, which includes again the Oviraptoron, the Dilophosa, which even though this can't block, it's still like a 4k for 1, which is really silly. Cornered Flame Rat as well, which is when this gets to you have to put 3 cores onto it, but if you are able to do damage with this early game, you're able to like draw a card, which is nice, and just kind of go from there. So I'd say like this kind of goes into more of a generic kind of package for it. Definitely would have liked to see Bearded Eagle in this build too, because I think it helps out the deck too, but in general, this is really, really strong for what it is. A lot of Nexus Destruction with both the Andromeda and the Burning Force as well. And just the Nexuses, yeah. So, I don't know, red I think is pretty solid. It's pretty understood how this deck is built. It's a little bit of how you do it. But, man, red also just gets so much draw, which means it gets so much consistency. Like, Starblast draw is very good. Volcanic Canyon is good. Like, Scorch, like, these 4 cards get so much cycle and draw and consistency for you that it makes it like a kind of a tier ahead of other decks at times. So anyways, that is Joshua's list, and we got two more lists left. These are kind of like the more unique ones, I would say. So this is EU's top 4. This is Kieran McNeill's Purple Curse, and again, this is a little bit of Soul Control. I kind of put it more as like a curse deck just because it weighs a little bit more than that, and specifically the Maduke. And honestly, I just want to talk about this deck just to talk about Maduke, and kind of how I misread how good this card is at times specifically. So really how Blood Curse works is that when the spirit would be destroyed by your opponent, you may place 1 card from your opponent's life and 1 card from the spirit into their owner's trash to keep this on the field refreshed, right? So and this is kind of the same thing like with Big Elephant Boy too. I kind of misread how good these effects are. Like you look at these and you're like, oh, they're on destruction effects, right? Which means that it's going to be kind of hard to proc at the sense that these are bigger than average cards, right? Like this is, for this effect to work, you have to have 3 cores on it, which means it's a 6K, which is a pretty chunky for attack power in this, right? However, something that I didn't really recognize for this is that doesn't really matter. That's not like the point of this. So being able to attack with this, and then either your opponent has to make a decision. Either 1, they lose something on board, which is actually being able to trade something on board is actually a lot better, like economy-wise, than I was expecting in this game. 2, they block it with something that's bigger, and then you get to use Blood Curse, which guess what? So when this would be destroyed by your opponent, you may place a core from your life and your from the spirit to their trashes to keep it alive. So, which means if they try to block this with something bigger, you just get to bring this back refreshed, and you get to attack with it again, and it did literally nothing for you. So that's really, really strong. So they can't block with anything bigger than it, which comes up a lot. R3 like this, and so because of that, this just gets to attack, and your opponent really can't do anything about it. So all these effects are really good. It's a little bit slow for what it is, but man, being able to use this to get some advantage from your opponent and just be like, well, you can't really deal with this card. This is just going to be applying pressure every turn for the rest of the game. And I think that's where that is. Again, I say against like white specifically, this is a really, really good tech card because of that. Because most of their ways is to remove they do have ways to bounce the hand. That's like the hardest removal for it. But if you attack, they try to block with Elk. Then Elk is Elk big enough for Elk is what? Yeah, Elk is a 6K as well. So yeah. So they're both 6Ks. You attack, they try to block with Elk. This gets destroyed, which means you get to use a Blood Curse effect, which means you get to drain a life and attack with it again, which just means that they can't block with Elk against this if you have exactly 3 on it. So that's really, really strong with how this matchup kind of ends up and it's tough for purple at times. So kind of want to mention it. Kieran's list is pretty solid otherwise, though, kind of leaning on more of the curse stuff as well, which, again, curse is, I think, very strong against white as well. Netherworld Depths as well can be a tech card with during your attack step card. And, again, I think this is a solid deck for this. I need to try out more of the Queen Maduke. I think the card's really neat. I kind of looked at it as like a win more card, but it's definitely not that. You definitely, I think, want to try running this a little bit more, and I'm going to have to see what my thoughts are going forward with it. So there's Kieran's list, and finally we do have Jack's Lubcke's white purple control. Jack's also like a really prevalent Bandai card game player from Oceania. I feel like I've been seeing that name for a really, really long time. So really cool to see him playing some Battle Spirits and doing well with it as well. But this is a really neat list. Like I am down to clown with what this list is doing. It's a really cool kind of mix between the curse and the white package as well. You have to make some sacrifices because of that too, but man, Elephant is so good. Elephant is such a good card. Elephant can just generate you so much advantage. It's so good. So like just being able to play this and then being able to play Elephant, I think can help you start a lot of games and do very well with it. And so being able to be kind of defensive at the start with this deck and just go off with it. This is a really, really cool list. I need to tinker with it myself, but I like what this does, and I'm really happy that this one got in the top 8 so I can kind of show it off. So obviously you just are like a really big control deck, but again, purple just has so much like ways to get rid of everything. Like this combo is so good, and even if not without that, like just the Baculus being able to get rid of the cores is strong for what it is, and being able to use cards for purple to like Deadly Balance is a really good card. Cavalier is a really good card for cycling and then reduction later, right? And then also having the defense cards if you need it. So I like what this does. I think it's really neat for everything, honestly, and I need to try it out more. I really do. I want to try this out and tinker with it and see what my final thoughts on it. But I definitely want to kind of showcase this list too. But that is going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. All these lists are going to be on my website, Eggman Events. They're there right now, so you guys can check that out. I'm going to try to see if I can get the Latin American launch event. That's the only one I'm missing at this moment. And make sure to follow the channel, follow the website for more Battle Spirit Saga content as well. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.
damn it.